Hey guys, today we're gonna look at a comparison of a 1911 single stack, sometimes referred to as the 1911 A1, and a double stack 1911, sometimes referred to as a 1911 A2. So at first glance, the two 1911s look pretty identical. Now, when comparing these two 1911s, we gotta understand that one design originated back in the year 1911, and the double stack frame, the 1911 A2, was developed only in around the year 1988, when a company called Para Ordnance innovated the 1911 design. So, a gifted engineer and designer by the name of Ted Szabo invented a frame that could accept high capacity or double stack magazines. With the innovation of Para Ordnance's design, other companies caught on, such as Springfield Armory from the USA, Lama from Spain, Norinco from China, and Armscor from the Philippines. Now, what is the key difference between the 1911 A1, or the classic 1911, and the 1911 A2, or the high capacity frame 1911? Now this is important when we think about compatibility of parts, which is what I'm gonna discuss right now. So at first glance they look pretty similar. Slides are actually totally interchangeable. Now the real difference lies in the frame, particularly in the grip area. So as we can see, the magazine well of the 1911 A2 is much wider and bigger than the standard 1911. What is exactly meant by double stack versus single stack? So the answer lies in the magazine design. So here on the left we have a double stack magazine, which can hold up to two stacks or columns of rounds, while we have a single stack here for the classic, which holds only one column of cartridges. So these magazines correspondingly go inside the 1911 A2 or double stack model and the 1911 A1 or the original classic 1911 model. Now going back to the frame, let's take a look at the grip area, which seems to be a really big differentiating factor. Now, people will wonder, that grip on the 1911 A2 is huge. Well, I've done some initial measurements, and this 1911 has standard grip panels. They actually almost measure as wide as the 1911 A2 in terms of grip width, because if you notice, the panels of the A2 are much slimmer. So the 1911 with standard grip panels measure around 1.3 inches or 33 millimeters. Now the 1911 A2 measures are around 1.31 inches or 34 millimeters. Now there's a big difference in the shape though of the grip area. The 1911 A1 has a much more oval and comfortable grip due to the oval shape, whereas the 1911 A2 has a boxier or chunkier feel to it. Now I have pretty big hands, so I actually don't mind the size of the 1911 A2. Now for reference, We have here a Glock, and the Glock's grip measures around 29 millimeters, thinner than the high cap 1911. However, for me, I got big hands. This one actually feels fine to me. The Glock feels fine as well. And if you got small hands or very particular, you might probably feel most comfortable with the standard 1911. Now, believe it or not, this Armscore 1911 came with thin or slim grip panels as standard. So these are actually a little slimmer compared to the standard 1911 grip panel dimensions. So if you have really small hands, you might want to opt for slim grips on your single stack 1911. Let me enumerate pretty straightforward the parts which are compatible or not compatible from a standard 1911 to the high capacity frame 1911 A2 design. So we're focusing on the frame design, or this area which deviates or which changed from the standard single stack 1911 design. So parts from the slide are all compatible. So the parts which are not compatible in the high capacity frame 1911 would be number 1, the magazine. Pretty apparent because there is no way you'll be able to fit this magazine in a single stack 1911. 2, the magazine release. This button over here actually is a bit longer in length compared to the standard 1911 magazine release. Number 3, the trigger. Now the trigger design of this one, the bar, similarly is a little wider, just like the magazine release. So it will not fit in the standard 1911 trigger bar frame, since this one's a little slimmer. Number 4, we have the grip panels. So these grip panels have a special design. They're slimmer compared to the standard 1911, and they do have a different shape to it. They kind of wrap around the frame of the 1911 A2. Number 5, the grip screw bushings are actually built in the frame of the 1911 A2. Now let me show you what I mean by the grip screw bushings are built in the frame. Now normally the standard 1911 bushings have slots, and you can screw these bushings onto the frame. Now these ones are these circles, they're just right there on the frame, and the screws, which is actually the next part, which you gotta take note of when in terms of compatibility. These grip screws just go right on in to these holes. Now the grip screws, you gotta be particular. These are slim type screws, where the standard 1911 screws would be longer. And the last part would be the plunger, which is actually built in the frame of the 1911 A2. In the standard 1911, this part is actually removable, and it is connected, or it is staked onto the frame of the single stack 1911. the 1911 A1 and the 1911 A2. Take your pick.